Well, not very often, but
No.
unless there's something special.
Yeah.
It's 9 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. An agenda has been provided previous to the meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I have one item, other business. Please add the Double D gravel ditch repair quote. That'll be an action item, and I did hand out a copy of that quote. That is brought back. We tabled that on the 14th meeting to this meeting. So we'll go over that when we get time, if that'd be okay. That's the only change I have.
Okay.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Next up, we have the approval of the consent agenda, which includes approval of the meeting minutes from May 14th, 2019, auditor warrants of 5/17/19, 5/24/19, and hospital warrants in the total of $528,566.05.
I'd move to approve. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. All right, next up, we have Don from MCIT to provide the annual report to the board. Thank you. I didn't want to butcher your last name, Don. So.
Quite all right, Mr. Chair. Don is fine. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, good morning. Thank you for scheduling us in your busy schedule. My name is, as you know, Don Daraskovich. I am your risk management consultant. I replaced Jane Henniker, who retired after 18 years last March. So I also want to extend a special welcome to new Administrator Ewing.
Thank you.
You bet. I hope you've all received the report I brought with me. We've condensed it down to 4 pages. It used to be 7 or 8. I'm not going to read everything word for word. I'm going to touch on the highlights, the brevity of time. I want to start out with saying MCIT covers 81 of the 87 counties in Minnesota. The 6 large counties, Hennepin, Ramsey, St. Louis, Olmsted, Anoka, and Dakota, are all large enough where they self-insure. They can have their own pool themselves. So we also cover over 380 other county-related entities, such as historical societies, soil water conservation district, those types of entities. There are 380 of those. Our MCIT board down in St. Paul consists of county commissioners, exactly like you're saying yourselves, and we also have an auditor, treasurer, and administrator on our board. So our board is a representative of our county members, and also our organization receives only taxpayer funding. We are provided no other revenue or income stream other than that. A little bit of the history of MCIT. It started in 1970. There was a group of commissioners facing very limited opportunity to put coverage in the regular marketplace, and the rates were rising very, very high. So they decided at an AMC meeting to pool the money together to pay all of their claims, and then whatever was left, they would return it to the members. And that's the basic structure of MCIT today. In the mid-1980s, they added property and liability and auto coverage. Now we've come full circle to cover work comp, property, liability, auto in the program. Pipestone County has been a member of MCIT since 1980, and we thank you for that, and we appreciate that. On the front page, you also notice that this year in 2019, we are celebrating 40 years of success managing risks together with our membership. This success only comes from members not thinking of our program as an insurance company, but we're more of a joint power entity, again, a risk-sharing pool. Members, again, pull their money to pay their claims and their resources. MCIT, as I've mentioned, provides property, liability, auto, work comp. We also do a thing called risk management, which is what I am, a risk management consultant. That's a pool way of saying insurance, because we're not an insurance company. We can't call it insurance, we call it risk management. We also have loss control, loss safety awareness and prevention. And this success also stems from members not thinking of us as a commodity such as name your price insurance. So that is not the program we are. Turning to the next inside second page, the black highlighted margin on the left stipulates MCIT rate history since 2010. As you can see, rates generally tend to fund future claims, and we base that on what the past experience has been. As you can see, the property and casualty rates have declined over 30% in that period of time, and the work comp claim, again, since 2010 has come down more than 32%. And the result of those rate decreases are our members paying attention to loss awareness and safety awareness and operating their businesses safely. So again, all the success straight to our members to doing that. Again, it's resulted in lower rates. Some of the advantages of being in a risk pool instead of an insurance company is that members have very similar kinds of risks. Now, there are slight variances to different counties. Some do things others don't. But in general, the basic nature of their operations are very similar. That lets us to gain economies of scale, and we're able to smooth out large catastrophe losses so that you don't wind up paying a very high rate a year after you have an unexpected large claim. So those are some advantages of a risk-sharing pool. As you can see in the rate structure graph, there were 2 years on the property and liability side, 15 and 16, where rates were pretty equal between the 2 years. The same for work comp. And then back in 18 and 19, our rates for property and casualty were level. So what that does is it lets members estimate future coverage costs at least equal, if not less than what they were paying the year before. In the lower left-hand corner, the green box gives a description of dividends. The amount there shown of $12 million returned on the trust as a whole, and your county's return is shown next to it. Just a reminder that if, again, you had your coverage with a standard insurance company, those dividends would go to stockholders. So it's nice that we're able to return taxpayer funds to the taxpayers if we don't need it to pay claims or to fund expenses. Again, dividends reflect past claim experience and the performance of MCIT investments. MCIT will only issue a dividend if it feels like it's actuarially sound and fiscally prudent. We have an actuary now that does project what future rates should be. So we have been doing that for the last 28 out of the last 40 years. So there was a period of time where some early in the program, some losses were underfunded and there were special assessments. Our MCIT board has decided try not to assess its members if claims are ever underfunded. But as you can see, in the last 28 years, we've never had to do that. We've always been able to return contribution to members. Up in the center of the second and third pages are 2 sets of circle graphs. That's claim history. That's a little summary of claims for 2014 to 2018 for the trust as a whole. The top set of graphs are property and liability claims, and the left shows the frequency of claims, which are the number of claims that we've paid in that period of time, the percentages in which kind of coverage. As you can see, auto coverage has been our largest claim area that we've paid. We've had most claims in auto, 61%. And the severity also, the singular line of coverage, most expensive is auto at 32%. An additional observation there one might make is that, well, actually, if you look at the public employee liability, the dark green, and the law enforcement liability, 9% of those claims were filed. There were very fewer claims filed in those 2 lines of coverage. But we actually paid, if you combine the severity of the dollars we paid in those kinds of claims, 36% of our claim cost has come from law enforcement and public liability. So that's an area the trust is trying to concentrate on helping law enforcement and public employees perform better. So we have several training sessions going on and programs that we're working on and improving that. And the lower 2 circle graphs depict workers' compensation experience, again for the period 2014-2018. As you can see, the sheriff's office and the jail operations and the highway department represent 51% of the number of claims that we've paid. and also represent 64% of the cost of claims paid. So those two areas of operations, the highway department and the sheriff jail operations, because of their 24-hour, 7-day-a-week nature, and they're volatile. I mean, they're dealing with a lot of assets, a lot of people interaction. They are going to be more significant. So that's to be expected, and there's really just a recognition there of why that is the case. In the lower left, in the lower section of those two pages, in the pink area, describes workers' compensation experience rating. Now here at MCIT, workers' compensation is the only coverage where what we do is we take a look at a member's past claims and compare them against what they should have. And if they have an average number of claims, then their experience modification is 1.0. In other words, they're not getting charged anything extra, and they're not receiving any kind of credit because we've paid the expected number of claims for that member. Now, if a member past experience for the last 3 years is greater in the claim side than what the actuary expects, then there would be a debit mod, or it would be a 1 point something, 1.1, 1.2. That means that a member would be paying a little bit more than the average cost because they've had more than average claims. And vice versa, if a member experiences less than average claim activity for workers' compensation, you'll see the mod under 1.0, it'll be like a 0.96, a 0.94. In other words, they're going to be paying less than the average workers' compensation cost. In the right banner to the right there, we discuss what Pipestone's experience mod, bless you, Pipestone's experience mod for 2019 is 1.091. So that's very close to 1.0, but you are just slightly above what was expected for claims. The history also is there for your county. In 2018, you were at a 0.96. 2017, you were at a 0.94. So you've enjoyed many years of better than average work comp experience. It's just a couple of years here and there sneak in over 1.0 and just over. The average cost above the average is shown there. When claim activity is a little less than better than expected, we just recommend that an active safety committee and your loss control consultant can help you identify areas maybe where you can make some changes. But with the 1.091, it's very close to 1.00, and you've been at 0.9697. You're probably doing many things that you should for the work comp, the claims experience side. I do want to recommend or suggest, we did recently bring on a recent police chief to our loss control area who is well versed in the law enforcement area, and we recommend that he be utilized as much as possible. His name is Keith Turns. He was a police chief for the Fargo police force. So he's now on our staff as loss control. He's a very good resource for law enforcement inquiries and questions. Any questions so far? Go ahead.
Could you give me some examples for the public employees liability? What typically would be the type of thing that would drive that?
The public employee liability is more like the professional liability insurance that you would buy out in the standard market. So it would cover like the attorney, the engineer, land use issues. So if there were cases raised that an individual didn't do something normally within that industry standard, that would be a public employee liability case or issue.
And what type of cases do you think drives that usage mostly?
The land use.
Land use.
Yeah, that's where we've had most activity on the site, so.
Okay.
I've got
Yeah,
questions
go
as well,
ahead,
too.
Commissioner.
Then on the claim frequency and severity on the workers' comp, and then these graphs are statewide graphs.
Exactly, yes. Thank you for asking. This is for the trust as a whole. This is not your specific county.
I'm really surprised that, especially on the workers' comp, that our law enforcement is double the rate of our highway department frequency. It's twice that. That really surprised, but that's statewide. Do you know, is Pipestone comparable to this average?
You know, what we could do is we could work with our loss control person for your county, and we could do a claim analysis, and we could prepare a graph similar to this for your county if you'd like. We can do that. Unfortunately, I don't have those statistics
Right.
with me.
Yeah, if it's not too much of income, because we are bumping above that mod rate.
Not a problem.
It might be good to take a little deeper look.
Do that, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Moving on, over in the right-hand margin on the third page, something that's drawn great interest by many of our members, which are coverage changes we instituted this past January. Our board is constantly listening to member input inquiries as to what they might like to see better or different in coverages. So this past January, we had a record 5 changes. Normally we see one or 2 or 3. So this past January, we've included 5 coverage changes. 4 out of the 5 are no additional cost. They provided this coverage because there hasn't been a lot of claim activity, so they didn't feel they need to make a charge for all but one. The first is data compromise Cyber 1 coverage. That's like your cyber liability, your breach of information on your computer. We increased that limit from $50,000 to $100,000, and I hear there's also discussion of that even being discussed further. On many of these coverages, higher limits are available. Again, an advantage of a pool instead of a company is that we're often able to get coverages much easier than if you had to apply to a standard company. So in many of these areas, there are higher limits available on request. And depending on the situation and on the limit requested, there might be an application, there might be some underwriting needed. But in most cases, if you're going like just to the next step or the next level, pretty easy to accomplish. So I just wanted to add that in. Next, moving on, our board has approved increase in builder's risk. This would be construction coverage. If you were remodeling or building a new building, they actually increased the building coverage from $500,000 to $750,000, again with no cost. And the contents limit went up to $150,000 from $100,000. Our third coverage changes has created some large amount of interest around the state, and these are drones. And typically, most of our members had a drone for law enforcement, and we picked up law enforcement liability. If it were caused injury or damage to a third party from law enforcement, we would have picked that up in the past. Now, if your owned drone is scheduled for coverage, we can pick up for any operation you use it for the county for. It has to be operated by your county employees and within FAA regulations. So, but if you have a drone and you use it for land use, the assessor's office, in addition to law enforcement, you can have full coverage for that drone. So, but there is a slight additional charge, much less than the standard market. We checked, the standard market was twice the cost. So. Fourthly is electronic data processing. We made it a little easier. Question?
Quick question about the
Yep.
drones. How many can we have? I mean, do we have to list? The highway department might want a drone sometime,
Sure.
or somebody else, we might have
Thank you,
more than
Commissioner, for the
one.
question.
I don't know.
We have no limit on the number of you can schedule. Some members have 2, 3, 4 drones. So there's no limit. It's just that you would pay an additional contribution cost for each. Thank you, Commissioner. Any others? Moving on, our electronic data processing, this is our hardware and software computer coverage. We made it a little easier to manage. In the past, we used to require if you had a temporary location or if it was in transit, there was a not to exceed a certain limit requirement. All that's been removed. So now we basically will cover any of the members' hardware, software, including its programming software. Wherever it's located, as long as the one blanket limit is sufficient to cover everything. We recently just went through a reconciliation of every member's EDP inventory, and I think your county was involved with that also. It wasn't easy, but I think we finally now have it to a point where every year we'll just ask for any change in the total blanket value. We're not requiring you to submit an inventory every year like we used to, but we do recommend members maintain inventory in case all of it goes, you know what you need to replace. Again, no charge for EDP change. The last is dams, Class 3 dams. We've all been hearing in the news, the weather, the extra snow, the extra water, rain load on many state dams are putting many dams in compromise. The board did agree on Class 3 dam, and a Class 3 dam is limited or very low hazard to downstream residents. These would be dams that are out in the rural areas, so they're not within the major metropolis or populated area. Now, if you don't know if your county's dam or dams are Class 1, 2, or 3, your county engineer should be able to help you with that. So now, as far as coverage for Class 1 and Class 2 dams, that is not within the program. The program initially excluded all dams. So the board this January decided we'll give coverage for Class 3 dams. And that's any liability you as a county is assessed for the dam. If you maintain it, you survey it, you technically don't have to own it. As long as there's any liability assessed against you for a dam that you maintain, that would be in this coverage.
This was helpful for Area 2 because it got to the point where they had switched their insurance to MCIT to save money, but then they found that they couldn't get dam coverage, and the former company wouldn't give them dam coverage without having their other insurance. So it was nice that MCIT added this on so that they would be covered.
Thank you, Commissioner. Finally, flipping over to the back page, this is where we provide information about services and materials and training. I'm kind of running up to my limit here, so I'll quickly move through this here. On the left is risk management services. Those are the services I provide as a risk management consultant. I may be able to answer questions about coverage, liability, insurance, or risk management in general. I can help with property schedule if there's questions about what kind of property should go on what kind of schedule. I also review contracts. We like to see contracts that our members are considering before they get signed and executed, because sometimes there's conflicts between what your actual coverage provides and what you agree to in a contract. So we do ask that contracts get sent for us for review before you actually sign and execute those. Our loss control person, or your loss control consultant for Pipestone County, is Bruce Casey. I believe he's a resident nearby here. He's in the area. Bruce last year made, I think, 2 visits out to your county, along with Hartford Steam Boiler. There were a total of 3 last year to your county. So Bruce is a good resource to help with written safety programs to identify hazards. He can perform safety audits. He may help with OSHA standards. He'll review employee injury data. The claim analysis that was requested, we'll have Bruce work on that in conjunction with myself. So Bruce is a very good resource, and we recommend that he, along with Keith Terrence, the law enforcement specialist, very good resources to help you through safety and loss control awareness. In the dark green and in the green boxes to the right, our employee assistance program. We like to remind counties that that's a voluntary, confidential, no-cost personal counseling program for employees and their members. There are also special programs for elected officials and law enforcement officials. Last year, Pipestone in the Red Banner participated at almost a 7% rate, and that's very good. The average we like to see is 4 to 5%. So we thank you for that, and we encourage that your employees and their family members continue taking advantage of that. In 2015 to 2018, there were 46 cases statewide that were removed from legal action or employment action through the Employee Assistance Program. So it can be a very good, useful tool to help folks that are struggling, either with their work or in their family life, and help them with some counseling that they may need. In the lower left, light blue corner are, as I mentioned, available training for officials and employees. We offer seminars, workshops. We do on-site presentations. We have police officer accredited training online. I checked, I don't think your county is taking an advantage of that, but that is a service we do provide to your law enforcement staff, something you might want to consider in the future. Training, videos, tutorials, both on our website and in person, and defensive driver training. We offer through the Minnesota Safety Council defensive driving for employees that specifically drive vehicles. In the center, the dark gray area of the last page are loss awareness and prevention materials. These are actual physical hard copies of things that we can get out on such things as deer collision, quick takes on safety on many subjects. We also have a program for law enforcement training, injury prevention during law enforcement training. That's been a big area that we've seen claim activity in. Our slip and fall program, Step Wisely, has been nationally recognized twice as being the best in the country. And we have loss control practices guides for many county-related activities. Lastly, on the bottom of the page in the black area, we're often asked, well, what can commissioners do to continue the success of MCIT? We do know that we see a correlation when there's activities and actions that are taken more serious when they're directed from the commissioner level. So we do recognize that as a correlation. Support safety initiatives, safety committees, return to injured workers to work, attend risk management training, support and encourage training and education for all employees, including volunteers, learn how your coverage might apply in a situation before making a decision about it, have contracts reviewed by us before, again, they're signed and they're executed, and basically promoting safety at all levels. And we lastly encourage engagement with MCIT as often as possible. Are there any questions?
I think so.
Covered everything well, thank you.
Thank you, sir, Commissioner and Chairman. On behalf of MCIT's board and their service team, thank you for Pipestone County for your continued membership, support, and participation in the success of MCIT program. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if there's any questions,
I think,
if not, through Administrator Ewing, I'm certainly accessible to help or answer anything I could.
well, we appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Yep.
Okay, next up we have Sheriff Keith Reeman and Chief Deputy Mike Gaiman, discuss vehicle purchases. Morning.
Put some bids out for vehicles this year. We're looking at 3 of them to replace 3 of our pickups we have. This year we sent it out, last year we sent it out kind of all over. We didn't get any response back from the Chevys. We got 2 Fords last year. This year we're going to try a little something different. We're going to go with Dodges. We have one of them, and they're a little less expensive. So we sent bids out to 3 different dealerships, and we didn't get one back, was Small Fowler. So we got 2 back. You guys have your packet. Pretty pleased with them, actually. You know, they're $44,000 vehicles, like from Papik, and fleet pricing is $29,000. The dollars they're talking for trade-in, that's why we're kind of looking at probably going Papik if that's what you guys feel, just because of the, you know, we bought these vehicles for what, $26,000, and to get 12 back for them,
Yeah,
pretty good, you know, deal.
it's quite a big difference between the trade totals between the 2.
I know there's a little, Steve has mentioned that, you know, the county shop is getting a little less, but we put, you know, the comparison is a little different. There's a few things we need for equipment, you know, and our guys are in them for 10 hours a day and stuff, so, but just in case there's a question, I also added them sheets in there just so you can see why we're paying a little bit more, but it's still, to me, a pretty good price if you look on lots to get a vehicle for 30,000. So I guess my any questions about it, but I guess I would recommend we go Aptic for 3 new Dodge pickups.
Will these be white trucks again like you're using?
Either white or black. Black kind of looks nice, but they're hard to stay clean, so we might get 2 in 1 or something. But yeah, basically they'll be.
If I remember right, next year we'll be trading off some cars.
Explorers.
Oh, I thought we had an Impala or something.
We got one left that Brian drives.
Yeah.
And he don't put a lot of miles on it at the school,
Yeah.
so it's working, that one's working good.
And how's the rest of the fleet?
Except for the jail, but we're talking with that right now. We have some money in the budget this year for a different jail van or something, but we're thinking maybe wait till next year, and then one of the Explorers are gonna trade off. We'll maybe just put that right in jail since we're equipped and everything. So we're still debating on that, how we're gonna handle that, but.
Sure.
I just had one other question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
The quote says, the new body style, but the pictures are the old body style.
Yeah, no, we didn't, the quote, we're not gonna get the new body style on Papic. That's an extra $6,000.
Okay, so these will look like 18s,
Yes.
but they'll be titled as 19s.
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
They're called, it's called the classic body style.
So they're
That's
making 2 body styles now.
There's quite a, you can get the new Ram body style, or what's called the classic, and the classic's extremely cheaper, so that's obviously why we,
Well, it's a good buy.
good, yeah.
Like I said, we have one Dodge and for a year now. That's been real pleased with that, so.
I've been driving a lease Dodge vehicle for a number of years, and I've been very happy with it. One of the features that mine has is got that side storage containers on the bed, which I find very helpful. I don't know if you guys looked at that for your application or not, or what the cost addition is.
We talked about it and looked at it, but I think, I don't know what the cost actually was to add that.
Okay.
These weren't priced with that, but we did look at that, because Murray County also has that, and we had called and asked them how they liked them, and they liked them, but they didn't utilize them the way they thought they would, so we thought, why?
And you've got enough space in the cab for your storage already anyway, so it's not really necessary.
Right, and then usually we add a secured box that's mounted permanently with inside
In
the
the bed.
cargo box that locks to secure some equipment that can't be kept, in the cabin.
We used to put them covers on, but everything got so dusty inside that we're going away from them and
Yep.
actual toolboxes that lock.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve this bid then from Papic Motor to purchase 3 additional pickups, and we're trading 3 in.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have County Highway Engineer Nick Bergman to also present a vehicle purchase.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have a request for board action to purchase some vehicles. We have 3 quotes there, one from Ford, one from GM, one from Papic. We also contacted DeBoers in Edgerton, and they didn't submit a bid. We were waiting for the state contract prices for Dodge and GM, but they had some problem with the state. They didn't get on there this year, so we just quoted our low.
It'll be pretty hard to beat this price anyway,
Yeah.
no matter where you go.
Yeah. Well, actually, that Ford price is a state contract price, and Papic beat that.
Right.
Different brand pickup.
Is this a V8 also, or do you guys use V6 motors in yours?
This is the 5.7 Hemi, I believe.
Okay.
It is.
Yep. So, I had 55,000 in the budget for 2 of these, and the quotes came in at 52,000. So, that's nice. Beat that by a few thousand.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the purchase.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Do you have a color preference on these?
think we,
Red, I believe, right?
yeah, we generally get red vehicles at the highway department.
And you're trading in a couple as well, too? I'm sorry.
No,
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 you're rotating them down through the fleet?
yeah, by the time we get the bottom two phased out, they're not worth trading. We'll just sell them on an auction, so.
Nick, are these four-door cabs or
Yes.
crew cabs or what, they're full four-door and they're not the smaller cab?
Correct, yep, they're the bigger doors, so.
Okay, is there any other further discussion?
Great price.
It is.
It is. I wish I could buy, I'd
Right.
I'd buy that for myself if I could, but.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving along. Next up, we have Kyle Creer, zoning administrator, to present a pictometry contract.
Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, pictometry contract. We've talked about it for a number of years. So far, we started getting our flights done. We did a flight in 2007, one in 2013, another in 16. So we're thinking that it's time again to get a refreshed flight, because currently the way we're utilizing pictometry primarily in the county is it's kind of our main viewing software for the courthouse staff to use to view the parcels and other things that are overlaid onto the imagery. Through the pictometry software, it's an online application that I upload shape files to, and then you can overlay things on their imagery, and then you have the side angles or the obliques that you can look at. So with the proposed new contract, if we get it approved by the end of the month, they will upgrade our up and down view from a 12-inch to a 9-inch, or from a 12-inch, or take that back, from a 9-inch to a 6-inch. And they will also upgrade our image of the cities from a 4-inch to a 3-inch, and that would be on the obliques, the side views. So we're getting a little incentive of getting this done sooner than later, but like I said, I think we were planning for this for a number of years anyway, but there is some incentive to do it now versus waiting.
Okay.
And I do believe that there's a few other counties. I think Lyon flew this year, but they got delayed, so they're gonna be flying next year, along with Lincoln and a couple others around. So, and then as far as the paying for the flight, you'll see in the contract that the total cost for the contract is $135,292, of which that is 2 flights, one being done potentially in 2020, the other within a number of years after that, potentially 3 years or so. Each flight is $67,646. And it's optional whether or not we want to have that second flight done or not. It's something we can decide later. They put it in the contract now so that price is set if prices would go up, but we're not required to do that second flight if we're short on financing or choose to delay it longer than what the contract allows. And right now, we've kind of been sticking at, 3 to 5 years. 5 years is almost getting out too far. 3 sometimes seems like it's too frequent, but it's kind of a struggle to say when and within that timeline we want to do it.
So there's no additional cost to the first flight, you just pay for half of it now and half of it for the
No,
following?
we're paying for the entire first flight now. The $67,000 pays for all of that, and then if we choose to do the second flight, that would be another $67,000.
Later,
Right, later. Yep.
to reserve that bid now or anything?
Right. No, we don't. We can make a payment now, but we're not actually required to pay it. It's split up into 3 individual payments for the $67,000. So. And as far as paying for it, right now, I wanted to talk about this a little bit too. We're getting buffer aid enforcement dollars from the state. We started receiving them in 2017. We've received our 18, and we'll be getting our 19 monies here soon. In 17, we didn't budget anything, so that dollar amount that we got, the $91,194, went into a dedicated account. In 18 and 19, we've assumed if we just brought those dollars in, they would be consumed by the conservation budget. But Tyler has since said that we need to put those dollars into that dedicated account, and we need to spend them out of that dedicated account. So there's going to need to be monies transferred from 18 and 19 into this dedicated account. And since we've only spent the $5,891 for the Pro West survey out of that account, and we're getting about $113,000 per year, we have right at $200,000 into that dedicated account now, and we will be getting another $113,000 this year potentially, and then ongoing in the future with an unknown ending date. Because these are legislative appropriated dollars for the buffer enforcement. Dan?
So then of that $200,000, then what else can that be used for other than for paying for the flights?
What I've talked with Steve about is we're anticipating some upgrades with our GIS systems within the county, along with a potential contract of Pro West that we'll be bringing to the board in the future, and that will consume a large portion of that dollar amount also. So potentially $67,000 towards pictometry now, would for sure be the first amount that would be deducted from that. If we did do the second, that would be, another 67, so we'd be using up a good portion of that, but our future GIS costs are unknown at this time, but anticipated to be $20,000-$30,000 annually.
So then if I follow you correctly then, to be able to pay for this pictometry, it's not gonna come out of levy dollars at all, because we got this additional enforcement dollars coming for the buffer strips.
Yep.
And again, to justify the use of this, obviously our people need this tool to be able to verify the buffer strip. So it's actually gonna pay for itself.
Right.
By having this tool versus the people having to go out in the field and physically go out and look at it, they can see it from here.
Yep, and that is actually one of the primary purposes that we're gonna use it for is Nicole in the office will use the imagery to verify compliance. The legislature appropriated these dollars with really no stipulations of anything specific on how the county has to spend it, but it's intended to go towards buffer enforcement or compliance.
And this is a tool that we will use for that compliance?
Yep.
Okay. That makes me feel better. To be honest, when I first saw this, I thought that this was an expense that we really couldn't justify. But I appreciate the way you've explained this. It makes sense to me now. I certainly would be in favor of doing this. I do like, though, your concept of just going ahead and figuring on the single flight at this point for the $67,000, and then we can revisit it in a couple of years, and we have to make that decision whether they want that next flight or not.
Yeah, pictometry has been a big asset to the county, though. I mean, it's expensive. The first flight we paid for with the soil, and for two of the 3 we paid with soil and water dollars of excess revenues that the soil and water had. The second flight was paid through the recorder's office, their
Compliance fund?
that's what it's called, the compliance fund?
Yeah, but that was our own internal compliance fund. That wasn't money that we're getting for compliance of the buffer strips. That
had nothing to do with the buffer strips. That was money coming in from people who were paying into our compliance fund in the recorder's office. So that, again, was non-levy dollars as well.
So everything that we've done so far is non-levied. The long-term future of the county's GIS, we envision that to potentially need to be some levied dollars towards that ongoing expense. But it's nice to have this buffer compliance monies now to get us over the hump and get that system in place and get it up and running, with the future not really being known of what the expense is going to be. But it's a cost that we're gonna have to spend sooner or later to keep up with the ongoing trend. So it's nice to have these dollars with some flexibility there.
Mr. Chair, I don't remember when it was, but about 5 years ago, you had a presentation here, I think it was in the evening, about this pictometry thing. And I don't know if you...
Was it to the board?
No, I think it was to the public. I remember going to it, and it was very interesting to see all the information that they gathered with it. I think it'd be a good idea to have that again if it's something that we can share with people, because it's very interesting to see the detail and the way they do it.
Excuse me, was that possibly GeoMoose when that?
It could have been, because I've done a couple board presentations.
Somebody came and presented
Google
it.
Maps.
And I don't know if they were trying to sell us another flight.
Oh, I think that was, we received training for the use of the pictometry software after the flight, so you guys are welcome to attend that
I
also.
remember coming to it, and I thought it was great because it gave you a really good understanding of how it works and what you're doing.
We had one last summer. I attended that. It's very good. One thing Kyle, mentioned too is that we have users, one of them is the assessor's office, they use pictometry daily, routinely. This is a valuable tool for the county to have this available, where they're actually able to check and see if there are changes from year to year, so.
Somebody builds a lean-to or a porch onto a building, it's right there.
Right, and they can, and it will show that up. So
Yeah, that's part of this plan too, is that we do pay for the change finder. It's a few $1,000s, but it identifies what's changed for structures between the last flight and the new flight. So it's a resource for that also.
They take pictures from an angle, so they get the sides of buildings and things like that.
Yep.
It's very interesting.
And then in addition to just the county, this also is provided to all the cities. So I know the city of Pipestone and Edgerton are the primary users, but the other cities do have logins. So it does reach out to a lot of different people.
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we do approve the purchase of the pictometry flyover. I would like to limit it to the one flyover at this point.
Sure.
And then reserve for the future discussion whether we spend the additional $67,000. I'm very much in favor of it, and again, specifically because we're using buffer enforcement money to pay for it. I like that concept. So
It's called the repairing aid account is what in 601, the budget number.
So I'll move that we do authorize this expenditure.
And second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Thank you, Kyle.
Okay, and since it's not 10 o'clock, I'll just continue on. You want to jump to the
Rugged Rock.
CUP for the Rugged Rock? Sure.
Yeah, we got time.
Unless you're expecting anyone to come to that.
We could take a break too.
I don't
Maybe
know.
that would be better, just in case someone would want to attend.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yep.
Let's do that.
With the pictometry, does the public have access through our website to look at that as well too, or is that limited to governmental?
They do not have access to the pictometry software itself, but we use the imagery as a base map for our GeoMoose. And if we do to switch to something else online through GIS, that would be our base imagery that people could actually see.
Okay.
So it's not, they need to have an email login that we administer and we need to authorize them to have. So it's something that, no, it's not provided, but it's utilized.
But it may be utilized in the future, or?
We'll never get to the point of giving public logins on the pictometry software itself. But like I said, we will use it as a base image like you'd use Google Earth or something else as your base map for viewing.
Okay. Well, thank you. Is there any other business we can move ahead at this time?
Chairman, we could do personnel and also the double D gravel.
Okay.
And then if there's time, we can take a break.
Thanks, Kyle. Kathy, do you have personnel? Okay.
Morning.
Morning.
So this morning I did pass out a pay plan with a number circled, so I will explain that. As you guys know, we have 2 paramedic positions open right now. And Cole Nordmeyer, who was a full-time deputy, he moved down to part-time because he was planning on leaving us to go to Laverne to become a paramedic. He is interested in one of our paramedic positions, and we would really like to keep him here working for the county. We think he's a great candidate. We did interview him last week, and would like to offer him step D of the current pay plan. That's the number I have circled. He does have 3 years of experience as a paramedic, and he's been a volunteer EMT/paramedic since 2014 for the ambulance service. So if this is approved, we would start him actually later this week, so.
What?
Kathy, then because he's already got tenure with us then, so that will carry over as far as his PTO and so forth.
Correct.
He's starting at 0, it'll carry over.
Yes, because he's still a part-time deputy, so that's another advantage as well. He would be primarily a paramedic with the ambulance and still able to fill in some part-time deputy shifts.
Oh, so his schedule would allow that, he could still supplement that, okay.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve this pay plan then to hire this individual as a full-time paramedic.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have motion and second to hire Cole Nordmeyer for a full-time paramedic. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Thank you, and we do still have the other position open through Thursday, so I'm hoping
Yep.
we do have one application so far, so. All right.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay. Moving forward, we'll discuss the Double D gravel ditch repair quote.
Take that, Mr. Chairman. Talked with John Schaefer this morning from the Ditch Committee, and he recommended that the board approve the Double D ditch repair in the amount of $49.64. This was the one that was pulled off of the agenda from previous meeting. The idea was that we would be able to get Double D out there to do a little more inspection on the concrete abutments or discharges from the ditch. There's actually two of them out there. But I think a lot of this has to do with high water and all of that as well. Can't confirm that for sure. But John did say that he would like to have the county board approve this bid today for Double D to go ahead and do this repair. And then obviously we'll take care of the other repair at a later time. So
Mr.
doing
Chair,
something, I guess, better than nothing.
I first moved to take this off the table from our last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second the motion to remove it from the table from last meeting.
Okay, we have motion second to remove it from the table. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
I'd move to approve the quote from Double D.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the quote from Double D Gravel. Okay, for discussion.
I see the asterisk there about the cement pipe and so forth. Do we know what kind of money might be involved if that cement pipe does have to be replaced? That'll be an adder to it.
Yes, that would, yeah, they're going to be very careful with this. That's part of this, hopefully this whole thing was going to come together as to one big project.
Yeah.
But apparently it's not for whatever reason. So they're going to be very careful when they do that, not to damage that. And if they find more problems, I would expect that I'll come back with another quote for additional work to be done.
So they reference it as a cement pipe. It's basically just concrete.
There's two 30-inch cement pipes going back into the field. I don't even know how long they are, but
They're just culvert sections, aren't
multiple
they?
sections of them, and to my understanding, they're out of alignment. So they're leaking between the joints as well inside as it goes back where it connects with the tile lines.
But these are just cement culverts replaced.
Basically, yes, they're cement culverts.
It's not something was poured there. It wasn't
No,
poured.
they're cement culverts, and the idea for the permanent fix from the ditch committee meeting would be to replace the cement ones with culvert steel type culverts. Engineer Bergman was there as well and
Yeah,
heard
that's
the
what I was curious
information as
about.
well.
Whether- Do we have any culverts that we could use for that? Or we'd have to buy something? If we needed something. Yeah. But you'd look at that, see if you got something you can repurpose. Sure. Okay, thank you.
Furthermore, I don't anticipate this happening until the water levels
Yeah.
recede and they can actually get in there. But, yeah, that's where it needs, at least to get started on it anyway, so.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you. Okay, we still have about 6 minutes before 10 o'clock. I don't think there's any other business. We can move ahead. Take a short recess till 10 o'clock. Thank you. Before I forget.
You're welcome.
10 o'clock, we'll reconvene the meeting. We have a public meeting fee lot application for Daryl Fiske, being presented by Cal Career, Zone Administrator. Good morning.
Morning.
I have Daryl with me. He has submitted a feedlot application and is proposing to expand his existing feedlot located in section 26 of Rock Township, the northwest quarter. He currently has about 400 feeders out there and is looking to increase it by a couple hundred for a total animal unit count of 540 when he's done. So, I don't know, Daryl, do you have anything to say? Just
No, not
what
really.
you're adding on?
Well, we're gonna add on, but what I'm doing is taking off a barn old barn that's 50 by 96. We're gonna take that down, and then we're gonna replace it by a shed that's gonna be 100 feet wide and 112 feet long.
Oh, nice.
is what the expansion's gonna be.
Well, that'd be nice.
It'll be nice, yeah. It's an old barn that my dad and I built in 1980.
Wow.
And it was a hay shed, and we converted it into a cattle shed, and it served its time.
Absolutely.
And so that's the reason it's, what we're doing now.
Okay.
So Kyle, there's no issues as far as zoning or anything
No,
like that?
no
We're all
zoning
okay
issues.
there?
Like I said, it's an existing site that's expanding, so no setback issues. He's far enough off the roads. The only thing that we need yet from the feedlot rule perspective is a manure management plan that we're working on, so.
There's no motion needed, this is
Nope, no,
information for us.
just a public meeting.
Curious about the manure management plan. Can you go ahead and discuss your plans?
I'm working right now with Ruth and CHS to making them, working on paperwork and stuff, and then we're keeping, the manure management part of it.
Okay. What are your plans with it? Did you plan on spreading it locally?
Yeah,
or-
spread it on my own land.
Okay.
We have enough land to cover everything.
Yeah, he's currently managing his manure properly. It's just that when you get over 300 animal units, it triggers that you're required to keep records and do a little bit more planning. So it's getting what he's doing on paper is kind of the significant of that, where you need to have your manure accounted as part of your overall your nutrient management plan that includes commercial and your crop yields, all of those types of things in a plan. That's typically what Adam, when we did the feedlot report, that's generally what we're finding people are lacking when we go out and do inspections on sites is people are managing their manure properly, they just aren't keeping the records that are required by the rule. So it's common. It's just
Typical of a lot of things that.
Yes.
The regulation from the state is so onerous that if you spend all the time doing all that paperwork yourself, you don't have no time to work.
Yeah.
Your water, then, are you on rural water? You got your own
No,
well?
well water.
Okay. Your neighbor to the north across the blacktop from you, have you visited with him? He knows what your plans are?
Yeah, yep, Dale Kuntz. Yeah, because I think letters were sent out, right?
to everyone within a mile of the site, yes.
And the purpose of this meeting is to generate public input for this.
Yep, if somebody has concerns, right.
Which I don't see anybody here, so.
I guess, good luck.
Yep. Yep, so we'll wish you well on your adventure.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks, you're all,
Nope,
you're good to go.
All right.
Thank you, Daryl.
Yep, thank you.
And likewise, you felt like we should probably wait till 10:15 for the Rugged Rock Inc. petition?
Yeah, let's wait 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's wait.
They should be here by then, I would hope, so. I don't expect anyone to come, but just in case there would be concerns from neighbors.
Nope, I agree.
We did have some attend the public hearing through the planning commission, so there was a few concerns. I think we addressed them pretty well, but,
I have gotten some emails from Al and Michelle Winter
oh, you have? Okay.
questioning what we had decided at the zoning.
Oh, the final outcome, okay.
He sent me some pictures of the water
Yes.
there, which there is a lot of water there, but there's a lot of water everywhere.
Right, and the water that they're concerned with is east, it's actually west of the proposed site.
So-
Because I drove right up to where the
Be
site
the
was.
water between their place and this site.
Right, but the water that's there is significantly higher this year. It's over the first road, but it's not over the second or the area that's being proposed.
They're planning on working on some higher ground a little bit to the east of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's up to them to deal with that. If there's water,
Yep.
we can't control that either.
Right. Well, and it's not gonna get that deep. Cover that high ground.
And we did have some stipulations and stuff. Kyle will go into that when we talk about it, but as far as safety there for spillage and stuff,
I mean, if it'd get high enough to cover that high ground, we've got bigger problems.
Good.
You bet.
5 inches of rain, you could,
Even that wouldn't do it. I mean,
anything could happen this year, so.
I think we'll take a recess then and reconvene. 5-10 minutes. Thank you.
7.
Convene the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, next up, we have Kyle Career presenting a petition for conditional use permit from Rugged Rock, Inc.
Okay, we had a planning commission meeting to discuss the application from Rugged Rock on May 20th, last Monday. And what the proposal is this is going to be a temporary lay-down yard for 80 of the nacelles. Of the 130 plus that'll be coming down, they're only gonna be bringing 80 of those to this site. And the proposal is they will take off the fiberglass casing that's on the nacelle, drain the 35 or so gallons of oil that are in there into a bulk 500-gallon container. And then they will be recycling the fiberglass casings across the road at Double D's demolition landfill. Having a vendor come in and take the oil from that bulk container weekly, and then they will be transporting the remainder of the nacelle to a salvage yard for recycling. And it sounds like they're gonna get about 10 of the nacelles on site, work on those. They'll be doing about 10 a week. And then they will be getting those out and bringing new ones in, so it'll kind of be a rotating, revolving process of the nacelles. So not all of them are gonna be there on site at the same time. You've got the findings of fact from the Planning Commission meeting, and the recommendations from the Planning Commission are to approve the conditional use permit with the requirements that they operate the site as presented, that the oil storage tank that's being proposed be made of steel rather than the proposed plastic that was originally presented, that they have an emergency response plan in case something would happen, that they know the contact numbers of who to get a hold of, and that they comply with any other permit requirements that might be out there, whether they're state, federal, or other local requirements. Are there any questions on the proposed application? This is an existing, it's not an existing, it's an abandoned gravel pit, if you're not familiar with the site. It hasn't been used for quite a number of years. If you look at the map that was presented or attached, the actual site is located to the far east of that pit. This shows that it's a little bit further west than it probably should be, so it's all the way to the far east side of that uncropped area. So
it'd actually be by the kind of green line there on the map.
yeah, closer to the property line to the east, where that blue line is.
Do you have any questions? The county guys back there?
Nick, do you guys have any questions as far as highway goes regarding this lay-down yard at all? Okay.
Yeah, sounds like traffic-wise, there's gonna be a few trucks per day.
Said maybe 2 to 3 trucks a day is all they really
Yeah,
expect.
and then they'll probably be taking the fiberglass nacelle casings across the road with a payloader, but, a couple trips across per day, so we didn't anticipate major traffic issues or concerns.
Mr. Chair, how long is this conditional permit good for? How many years?
It was not specified in the hearing process. The proposal was they would start work in June and likely end September 20th, I believe, but that was, I think it might have been, it's better probably not to have a specific date, but I mean, it's something that if the board has concerns with that lingering on, I would hope that they would be done by the end of the year for if at any reason there should be an extension needed, they would be done by the end of the year, by the end of this year. So, I mean, that would be something, if you feel that's of concern, we could sure you could add that today.
It won't go on any longer than the project or taking them down, so.
Right. As of right now, there is no ending date. So if you want an ending date, we would need to add that.
Do we have any assurity at all that they clean the site up when they're done? Say a couple years from now, if something goes sideways on this project, they'll leave a mess there for us. Who's responsible for cleaning up the mess? Worst case scenario.
Heartland Colony is the owner of the site, so they would be responsible. There was a lot of discussion at the hearing as far as the oil spilling contamination. This is part of the wellhead area for the North Holland wellhead also. As listed in the findings of fact, the watershed line is south of this site, so and the surface flow is to the north away from the wells. So I talked to the Department of Health. They weren't too concerned with the groundwater contamination aspect of this, with the surface flows and everything going northerly towards Flandreau Creek. But if there were, and the other discussion that we had at the hearing, that is everything will be a closed loop system, so they will be tying a hose to the nacelle and screwing it into the storage tank, so everything is going to be closed. with a ball valve controlling that. And when the vendor comes to take the oil from the bulk tank, it'll be done by vacuum. So the Planning Commission wasn't concerned with spillage. So I don't know what would be left on the site to require a cleanup. There wasn't concerns from the Planning Commission anyway.
Issue, that was a big concern, and then the maximum that'll be, there's 500 gallons of oil in the tank,
Yeah.
other than what's in the cells when they bring them there. But
And I guess the other question I'd have, you mentioned the payloader then going back and forth across our county paved road there. Possibility could be dragging mud back and forth, the wear and tear of the road, depending on how heavy that payloader is. Do we have a road use agreement with them like we would with any other big wind project?
We do not.
Okay, is that a concern at all for you? In fact, Nick?
Probably just depends how big how much weight they've got.
Yeah.
The nacelles themselves weigh 45,000 coming in, and they will be going out weighing about 35,000 pounds.
so there'll be trucks hauling those out as well.
Right.
But they
Yeah.
haul stuff in and out of Double D's facility there
So
constantly anyway, so
they'd meet the weight
it's a
restrictions.
matter of,
Yeah. What is that road designed at tonnage-wise? Do you recall off the top of your, sufficient, this isn't gonna,
I think it's 10.
10-ton road, isn't it?
Okay, it's
I believe it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, should be good.
do we need any protection at all for ourselves? Or again, if we have a situation with mud getting drawn across there, we've got the authority to shut them down if they're not cleaning up the road already.
Yeah, it might not hurt to add that, it's what I'm thinking of, it's kind of right over the hill too, so nobody really knows it coming.
Yeah.
Was one concern that we did get is about the high water that's out there already, and potential for oil getting into the high water and possibly into the wellhead.
Yeah, and the reason that is a concern is that all of the individuals that live in that area do have their own private wells. So that is why the oil was a concern to them and the discussion at the Planning Commission meeting, so.
We don't have the authority to require a bond of any kind for this because we don't actually own the property.
No, we have the ability to require a bond at any time with any project, if that was a condition that you'd want to add.
I'd feel more comfortable with that. That way, if you do have these worst-case scenarios, something comes up, at least we have a lever. Without a lever, we can't force anybody to do anything. So,
But yet, with a bond, you're limited, I mean, it's quite a process. It's not something you quickly act on. To my knowledge, I've never had to deal with bonds or claiming bonds. I don't know if, Nick, have you? But I mean,
It's not that hard to get one.
if it's dirt on the road, you're not gonna go through a bond. It's just leverage to get that done and ensure that they don't.
but because it's a temporary conditional use permit, if for some reason something goes south on them and we have, whether it be oil or even just a fiberglass mess there, and they're all said and done to make sure it actually gets cleaned up,
Yeah.
gets taken care of.
Yeah, as I said, the Planning Commission did not have any of those recommendations as part of the request, but the county board does have final say, and you have the authority to add those as conditions if you
I don't
choose.
see this as any more traffic than a farmer hauling machinery in and out of the field with mud on his tractor or anything else. I mean, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna have to go all over the place, because I run in mud and manure on the highway every week. And I don't like it either, but I'm sure that's just a fact of life out here. I don't think that's a big problem.
I could see maybe adding a stipulation that just all the components of these cells have to be removed from the
Yeah.
property.
Just common sense to clean it up as you
Right.
go would be common.
I mean, you couldn't leave any there, and I'm sure the people that own the property don't want any left there either.
Are you considering this for the potential of a oil leak? Is that what you're thinking?
Pretty much everything is a blanket.
As a blanket?
You know, whether it be, like I said, for some reason, the project goes belly up and they walk away from it and they leave a mess there.
Okay.
Who's going to be responsible for cleaning the mess up? But at the same time, is it fair for us to require a bond for this when we don't require a bond for other enterprises going on? I don't know. And maybe it's not necessary.
I think we could put a stipulation in to keep the mud off the road.
Just to keep the road in the same condition as when they came, but These gentlemen are from Minneota, so they're not from.
They're local, but
all over the place either. They're nearby, so if we have any questions, I'm sure we can contact them.
And the property is owned by Heartland, you said?
Yep, Heartland Colony does own the property.
So they've got a vested interest in keeping that cleaned up and taken
Yep.
care of as well, too. It's not
Yeah,
something-
there is a lease agreement between the two parties for, them to utilize that property. So, I was looking through here to see if I had the verbiage that's in the lease agreement, but I don't.
Yeah.
Well, the planning commission made the recommendation to approve it with the stipulations Kyle mentioned, so I'm okay with that. I'd make a motion to approve it.
I'll
But
second
if we
that.
want to have any other discussion, we
I'll second your motion, yeah.
Here, we have a motion and a second to accept the petition for conditional use permit for, from Rugged Rock Inc. for the Heartland Hutterite Brethren property. Is there any further discussion?
There was a lot of discussion about it when Kyle and I were both here with the rest of the board and the other concerned neighbors, and they did address a lot of the things that we had questions about. I think it'll be,
As long as everybody operates in good faith, it's going to be a
That's all
good
we can
project, so.
but whether they're doing new turbines or, well, no matter what they're doing,
Yep.
and we have those same concerns all over the county every day with people driving on and off the road, so.
And as far as somebody leaving a mess on private property, we don't have that jurisdiction or responsibility. That's between the property owner and the people they get the contract with, so.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the board?
Mr. Chairman, just get a roll call. Who's going to the AMC meeting in Tyler?
I will be.
1, 2, 3. 3?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the 6th.
Yep, and those, for upcoming meetings, we do have AMC District Meeting in Tyler on June 6th. On June 17th, we have the County Board of Equalization here at 7 p.m. And June 18th, we have the Employee Appreciation Grill Out at the EMS building from 11:30 to 1 p.m.
Good.
Okay, here, no further business. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
A motion second to adjourn.